2019 Ram 1500 chassis we're seeing here at the show. There's a few things to point out here. It's nice that they got the chassis up so we can take a look at it. First thing I want to point out is these Y-splayed frame rails. This is new. It has to do with crash standards. So, nothing too fancy, but the front of the frame is Y-splayed, okay? The next thing I want to point out is the e-torque assist system up there. It looks like a giant alternator because that's kind of what it is. It's a sort of a starter generator situation. This adds a torque boost in certain situations, and it's actually what gives the Ram 1500 the highest possible torque rating you can only get with these e-torque motors. To be clear, we haven't driven the e-torque equipped Rams yet. We drove just the normal 5.7 on our first drive review, which you can click on the link below and read. We will be driving the e-torque trucks a little bit later in the future. Very excited about that. The next thing I can point out is looking at the sort of front wheel well area. The suspension geometry has been changed a little bit. Some things are new. You can see the upper control arm, the upper A arm, is now basically a reinforced plastic unit. That sounds like it's totally bogus, but it's actually a pretty strong composite material, and they're doing that for weight savings. The rest of the geometry, it would bore you to get into unless you were a suspension engineer. So let's just say it's been revised. The wheelbase is a little longer. The ride is very comfortable. This one's equipped with air suspension. We drove one without air suspension, but very comfortable ride. You can't see it on the engine, but the cylinder deactivation technology, its range of operation has been expanded. So that means this engine, which is a 5.7 Hemi with e-torque assist, will operate in 4-cylinder mode more often. Now, what that actually means for the driver is there's going to be more weird vibration because it's not, it's a V8. It's not designed, it's balanced in V8 mode, but there's some weird secondary vibrations and noise. So if we go along the side here, you see this round thing that's hanging off the side of the frame there? That's actually a shaker. So it's got a sensor, and when it detects that the engine is vibrating in sort of not a very pleasant sounding way, it will actually shake in opposite phase, or I guess you would call it, and it cancels out those unwanted vibrations. There's also active noise cancellation coming through the speakers to drone out some of those awful noises. That's the front of the vehicle actually is most of the changes, but we can just walk through the rest of the chassis. There is one thing I can show you all the way at the back. The rear suspension geometry has been changed just a little bit, but the interesting thing is, I don't know if you can see the plumbing on here. These new Rams have a liquid-cooled rear differential. And I shouldn't say cooled. They get coolant from the engine, and that helps them warm up faster, reducing some of the friction that you get from thick gear oil in that differential, which causes the truck to be a little less efficient when it's cold because that oil is thicker. And then as it warms up, it helps keep it just the right temperature. It just goes to show you, you're running engine coolant all the way from the front of the vehicle back to the differential just to get what has to be a really minute fuel economy gain. That just shows you that engineers are looking for every last drop of fuel efficiency in these vehicles, and they're willing to put in fairly expensive systems to get there. So that pretty much covers the really interesting new stuff about this 2019 Ram 1500's chassis.